Ugh. Well, it's another installment of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. Couple questions came in about, can I talk more in detail about what went on 42nd Street or about the stores and the sex shops and things like that? Well, problem is with this YouTube thing, I don't know what my parameters are as far as saying certain things, so I can try to skirt the issue and see if we get away with it. Because, even though you had the backdrop of all the movie theaters and that, you also had massage parlors, adult bookstores, adult emporiums, live sex shows, and other strange shit that went on down there. And also in that whole era too, we had the garbage strike. I keep forgetting about. I'd like to forget about it totally, but you had a lot of rats running around. So, and 42nd Street after hours always looked trashy. Garbage strewn, bottles here and there until it was cleaned up the next day or whatever. But most of those theaters let out around the wee hours, 2, 3, sometimes 4. The Harem, which was the only 24-hour porn grinder, was open 24 hours. The Venus, which was, on 8th Avenue way up the block into the 50s, that was open till 7 a.m. And then it closed and then reopened at 10 a.m. Most of the theaters started doing business around 10, 11 a.m. As far as the other places, well, the whole creepy aspect of the thing was, you had smack dab in the middle of the block was Blackjack Books. And that was a creepy place, 2 floors. I remember they used to have on the 2nd floor the San Francisco Theater of S&M. That was up there. But then it changed the whole motif. I knew one of the guys that used to roam around. He was like a career, I don't know, I can't say sex worker, but he was a bouncer at most of these places, or, watched the door. He was at Blackjack for a while, and then there was all these young guys hanging out in front, and they'd pair off with businessmen and go upstairs into the peep booths and do whatever. So that was a little creepy scene there. That place never closed. I can remember driving somebody over to had to get on a bus, and we got over there like 4 o'clock in the morning, and then found out that the bus didn't really leave till 6. So we were roaming around, and we went by there, and it was open. A few places were open, but that was open. So we walked in there. It was, weird and creepy, and it's sawdust on the floors. During the day, the clerks would scream at people to pick up the books with both hands. I don't know. What the fuck do I know? But yeah, that was another one. And then you had all these side stores, small adult bookstores, where basically that was where you would find the weirder shit. So, and they were old and run down. But then on the corner of 8th and 42nd Street, in the old, I think it was the old Chemical Bank building, this guy built undercover a 3-floor smut emporium called Show World. And this was all stainless steel and linoleum, as opposed to this old creaking Formica and, broken film machines and all this other shit. And that became one of the main attractions on the Strip. The weird part is, the peep shows in New York were sort of akin to the slot machines in Vegas. That was the attraction. 2 things that you shoved quarters in for whatever reason. But yeah, Show World was the state-of-the-art one, and basically it had an impact that people really didn't realize, because it actually made some of the other places clean up their act, because Show World had visible security. The owner also was a boxing fanatic, and he trained boxers. I think there was a gym either down the block or over Show World, but I know he had a gym too, and he trained boxers, and there was always these big surly guys hanging around. So And then they also had live sex shows, and also would book, name porn stars like Vanessa Del Rio, Sharon Mitchell, she's Matt Haven, Annie Sprinkle, on and on. So yeah, they would book them, and then the Harmony, or AKA the Melody, the Harmony, they changed names. They would do the same thing. And right across from Show World, you had the Show Place, which was the gay equivalent of Show World. It was a big gay emporium over there. If you walked around the corner, you go past the Harem, which I said was open. That was the only one that was open 24 hours. That was a weird. You had to go upstairs, and the theater was really narrow, and a lot of very weird activity going on up there. For the one time I was up there, and I never went back. People smoking crack out in the open. Open sex acts, things like that. So yeah, it was pretty weird and creepy. But then you get down to the street level again, and there was the entrance to what used to be the dating room, which I was a proud member. That was, pseudo massage parlor, where basically that's where I met this guy, Leon, that worked at Blackjack too. You take an elevator up to this, I think it was the 4th floor, and you'd be frisked by Leon, and then you get a membership card. I think the membership card was $10, and then it was $13 to go into the room and then negotiate with the hostess. And then on each visit they punch out a number, and I guess when you got the full card, you get a freebie. Unfortunately, the place was busted before I could get a freebie and turned into something else. So that was that one. And then the movie theaters. There was a huge. I think it was with it. There's a big sex emporium on that one side, on the left side, that was basically a supermarket, and that was huge when the VHS stuff came out. That was a supermarket. You went further up, you'd hit the Rialto 1, the Rialto 2, and the Victory, which was the old porn grinder. Then you'd cross the street with the New Amsterdam, the New Barracks, which was a gay bathhouse, which always attracted the wrong clientele. The Harris Theater, Tops Bar, which was another really place to stay out of. And then, more movie theaters. You get down the block, the Liberty, the Empire, whatever. And then you hit the end with 2 bookstores, 250 Book Center and Courageous Books, which were those narrow bookstores with film peeps in the back. And they had, I believe, pretty much a little weird cruising scene going on in there, too. As far as prostitutes on 42nd Street, I never saw any, but you'd always get approached by the pimp, or the pseudo pimp, would tell you he had these girls, and if you were really stupid, you'd follow him, and he'd tell you everybody got to give him $10, and he'd go upstairs, he'd give you your room number, and he'd clear it with the girl. Just wait 10 minutes and go up, and you'd be in. And you'd wait 10 minutes and go up and knock on a door, and some perplexed person would answer the door who wasn't even in on the scam. So that's what you'd run into on there. Plus, like I said, I think I said before about, the fake drugs and shit like that. It was also the one store that sold fake IDs, stag films, stroke books, and blackjacks, martial arts weapons. You couldn't get switchblades back then. They were banned in the, I don't remember, probably the late 50s because of all the, I don't know, remember the juvenile delinquent shit? So then you could get gravity knives, which were close. They would actually have the switchblade look if you could flip them out and stuff. So, that was an attraction too. Plus, other weird shit. Holsters, police badges, all kinds of crap. That place must have been really popular with the cops, but you'd see all these people from Jersey, these chicks from Jersey lined up to get the fake ID so they could go drinking. So, yeah, that was a stop-off point. Just a lot of crazy shit went on over there. Mostly, then, like I said, if you went down 8th Avenue, that's where all the porn grinders were. You get down to, like, the 50s and the Venus and the Eros One and then the Capri. Yeah, different times. But, like I said, you really can't go into, too much detail about, what went on in these places. I remember when I first started, writing about this, Frank Henenlotter remarked, I don't know what your angle is with the whole thing. And I says, Frank, I honestly think it's the fact that I went in and described these places in detail and described what I did in there, because people usually said, well, I walked by, but I never went in. Yeah, bullshit, you went in. But I was never, it never, the stigma of being seen in there never really bothered me. I never gave a shit. So, really didn't bother me at all. Plus, like I said, I patronized the dating room. A couple other places. They all, changed hands, quick turnover, whatever. It is what it is. Actually, what I got coming out, this Two-Fisted Tales of Times Square, one of the stories follows a guy who's, hired, he works for the mob, and he goes from massage parlor to strip joint to whatever, collecting, the take for the night. And, there's a story about, some of these places in there too. So that's why I said I based a lot of this stuff on fact and segued it, from things I read about and things I personally experienced. So that's, that'll be cool. Yeah, there was another, there's all kinds of stories out there. But, if you read my book, you know what I'm talking about. The second book's going to come out, regardless of what was going on before. I'm working with somebody who really wants to do something, and it's all cool. And Nick, if you're watching, thank you. It's been great so far. We're going to see what this other thing does, and take it from there. Yeah, sometimes it's really hard to describe the whole thing. I mean, you can sit in there like one experience I wrote about in a magazine was I was hanging out with this barmaid / working girl Lisa, and she wanted to go see a vampire movie one night. I think it was. I know, Count Dracula and his vampire brides, and I forget what was playing with it. I think it was at the Empire. And, okay, Lisa was indicative of some of the chicks of that era because she liked diet pills, like Black Beauties and White Crosses and Dexedrine or whatever the fuck they were. That's what a lot of these girls were taking then, and, to keep the weight off and whatever, but she was a little overboard on them that night, and we go in to see this, I think this was the last time that Christopher Lee played Dracula, and it was like the low end of the whole series. But, should we sit down, and I don't know, this couple rows in front of us, the chick turns around and she's looking at, Lisa, and all of a sudden Lisa goes, oh, what are you looking at, you insert C word here? And then they're going back and forth, and then her guy stands up and tells me I better control my old lady, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to get in a fight with this guy. And then it got louder, and then the usher came over and goes, you got to chill, and then she started it on him, and I'm like, okay, Pill's talking, fuck this, we're out of here. So we got the side exit. And she's like, beep, 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 beep. I look at her and go, fucking Pill's talking. I said, I told you, no. So, okay, now she's contrite, and I'm like, all right. Somebody comes out, I guess it was the Harris or something. Anyway, they're coming out the side exit. I'm like, okay, here's my cue. I stick my foot in the door and I go, get in here quick. So we get in there, we drop in the seats, nobody saw us. And there's obviously some horror movie on the screen. Something about two twin brothers, and one of them is a vampire, and there's this big red ring, and there's these hot European chicks bathed in blood, and there's somebody riding in a horse carriage, and this vampire gets some. I got some cool. They had some really big fucking fangs back in these Euro films. Anyway, we get these. One vampire gets impaled at the end or whatever, and I guess his brother turns into the other vampire, and we only caught the last, I think, 30 minutes of this thing, which turned out to be the Devil's Wedding Night. So, okay, this other thing comes on, grainy, chewed-up film, and it says Brute Corpse. Or is it Brute Core? I mean, there's Marine Corps. I never got that right. I never understood that whole thing. Corpse Corps, whatever. So she's a little bit happy she saw the vampires whoop-de-fucking-do. But now she's like, you think this is going to be a women in prison movie? You think Pam Grier's in this? And I'm like, well, being it looks like they shot this in a rock quarry, I'd have to say no. So this is something about mercenaries that basically grab this hitchhiking couple, gang rape the girl, the guy goes back for revenge, everybody's getting killed, but it's all loaded with 70s character actors and future TV stars like Felton Perry, Alex Rocco, Michael Pataki, Roy Jensen. I forget who the female lead is, but I don't think she did anything else after that. But it's a really, downbeat, grim, violent-ass movie with people getting blown up with hand grenades and barbed wire. Oh, and they killed a bunch of bikers just because the bikers sort of tweak them off in the beginning, so it's all good. But, yeah, then, she's like, oh, this really sucks. And I said, well, guess what? We're going to sit here and watch it because you fucked up the other thing. So that sort of guaranteed me of getting nowhere later on in the evening, so... After that, we went back and had a few drinks, and I took her home. And like I said, I didn't get anywhere. She was tweaked, but this is like I said, that's why I never did any I can't say I never did any chemicals. They never did me any good. They just didn't work with my system, and I did fuck around with coke for a week, which fucked me up, and I never went back to doing that. So for me, it was always weed, wine, or buds and suds, or whatever. So that's why I never did chemicals, and I never understood people that have to do these chemicals because they just make me feel like shit. So that's probably in my benefit because I got an addictive personality. That's why I'm smoking weed, and I had one before I came in here. So there's a little whatever of 42nd Street just for shits and giggles because I had nothing better to do. But the good news is I might have a pile of magazines in tomorrow, and I will announce that then and give up the ordering information once again. So until then, stay safe. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for subscribing, and we'll catch you on the flip side.